Hey friendo, Steve here. Welcome back to another Ask WrestleJuice. It's been a little while since we've done one of these things, and I know I've been doing them live lately. However, I think I'm thinking of doing a different live thing for WrestleJuice instead of the Ask WrestleJuice situation. Even though I usually have fun doing them, I just feel like I'll have more fun doing something different. I don't exactly know what it is quite yet, but part of me wants to come back to doing some form of streaming, either here or more likely over at twitch.tv/MFSteve here, because I miss looking at those old territory wrestling videos that are on YouTube. It's so much fun. I wish YouTube would lighten up on the whole live streaming thing. The fact that you can kind of do anything on Twitch, like what's the harm in doing some live streaming stuff and then killing the VOD for it? I think, they need to lighten up a little bit. Anyways, C Machine has our first question. He says, should Roman go full heel or bring God mode back? Smash everyone who talks bad about the bloodline, destroy them, annihilate all in his sight, be the fighting version of the final boss. I don't think either person needs to have an attitude adjustment, if you will. I don't think either person needs to, and neither Punk nor Roman needs to go heel necessarily. I think that they both bring a unique set of characteristics and motivations, as we saw in the promo on Monday. And I think that's enough. I think that's good. I think that the crowd will now have to figure it out. The crowd will have to decide. And that's what I'm most interested here, is the crowd reaction. If the promos we get from Punk and Roman over the next, 2 months or whatever, 2 months, if those are as good as the one on Monday night, but I do feel like 2 months is a long time just to focus on that. Or it's a long time just to have a face-off that ends up in a pull-apart brawl. Or producers come and they separate everything. I think, doesn't there have to be some sort of twist or turn? Doesn't there have to be some sort of Paul Heyman interaction, perhaps? Obviously, Punk is going to be busy in the short term, at least over the next month, with Finn Balor, because they're going to be doing that match most likely at the Elimination Chamber, because that's in Chicago and Phil's got to defend in Chicago. So he's going to be busy doing that. But what does Roman Reigns do in the meantime? Easy answer is he goes on vacation again, because Roman's like super part-time. So I don't think we should expect him, even though it'd be nice to have him over the next month. What is he going to do? But then that's where the writing comes in. That's where they should be concocting some sort of plan, some sort of idea, something to do for Roman over the next month. I mean, ideally, if they're going to sign him to anything, it's going to be between February and April when WrestleMania is. So let's get him involved in something. But I want the writers to write a story from now till WrestleMania. The match is set. It's set in stone. And I don't think they're going to add Finn Balor as a triple threat. I don't think they're going to do that. I think the Drew Cody Fatu thing is going to be a triple threat. But I don't think anybody needs to go heel, simply because when you have two characters who are so well defined, then that's kind of all that matters. You shouldn't need one guy to be a good guy, one guy to be a bad guy. You shouldn't need that. They did do that for a little while with Seth Rollins and CM Punk. They did that where both guys were sort of good guys. Both guys were getting cheered. And then they did the thing at WrestleMania where Seth goes with Paul. He creates the vision. And then there you go. He's bad guy, which in my opinion is a bit less interesting than if he's just guy whose motivations obviously clash with CM Punk's. So I don't think either guy needs to do anything. Roman, I mean, in terms of the God mode thing, smash everyone who talks bad about the bloodline, destroy them, annihilate all on a sight. That's kind of what Roman, I think, is still right now. He hasn't really changed much from that. So yeah, I'm gonna push. This is a boring answer. I'm gonna say no. Nobody needs to go heel, but would it be interesting if somebody maybe took things too far? If they did something that a heel would do, and how do they reconcile that? I don't know, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm really interested in that particular match. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at these other ones here. Chico Sweet. I'm gonna try to read as many of these as I can. Some of them aren't even questions, so I'm not going to read everything on the thread. So we'll just go from here. Chico Sweet says, weirdest wrestling memory. He says, mine is when I was a kid, I saw Batista fighting Santa on SmackDown. Somehow never forgot that. So I don't have much of a... I didn't watch wrestling when I was a little kid. So it's not going to be any of that. I will say this. My memory is incredibly murky for, I think, the very first independent wrestling show I ever went to. And I'm almost positive it had Abdullah the Butcher, and I want to say Frankie Kazarian was there. I got to ask Larson because I'm pretty sure him and I went together. And then there were a couple matches back in the day when I lived in LA, like in the early 2000s, that I went to that were not PWG shows, but there was another promotion down there. And it might have been UPW, which is the one I think that Cena started out in. So I would really love to somehow, and I don't think this is possible, somehow, some way, find out what the cards were for those shows. But man, I have no idea how I would go about getting that. Because I'm kind of, for example, Will Hobbs, Royce Keys now. I saw him wrestle 13 years ago, I think, at Supreme Pro Wrestling, maybe 2010, 2011. At Supreme Pro Wrestling here in town. He was a lot smaller then than he is now. And I've got like little glimpses of it on like some old home movies, fucking A, on like old videos that I shot on my iPhone when I was there. And like the camera sort of pans and I'm like, holy shit, who's that? I'm like, oh my God, that's Will Hobbs. Holy crap, look at that. So yeah, I kind of want to know who all I saw back in the day. Stu said, you're in an elevator with James Gunn. What's your superhero movie idea you'd pitch to him to the DCU? Just this. I would just double check it to make sure. It's a, hey, we are getting an HBO Max. HBO Max? Is that what they call it now? Whatever. What is it now? HBO Max. An HBO Max series on Justice League International. You're going to adapt Keith Giffen, Jam DeMatteis, and Kevin Maguire's series. Right? Parsath says, cast one pro wrestler in a comic book movie or show. I'd like to see Swerve as Black Manta. All right. Cody Rhodes is Booster Gold. Oh, that's the one right there. I think they've already cast a Booster Gold. Dr. Howie says, what's one thing you hope to accomplish with your solo channels as opposed to going in Raw besides revenue? Besides revenue? Joking. So I like WrestleJuice is fun because I just get on here and I do a thing and I put it out there. And sometimes I enjoy just reacting to things. Like I did the video reacting to the TikTok the other day. And I thought that was fun just because I get to sit there and sort of exercise my memory. And then a whole discussion happens in the thing. Or when I do Wrestling Jeopardy, it's just fun to sit here and do that by myself. So fun, is that a thing? Fun is a thing. I also, for the other channel, if I ever actually am able to do that on a consistent basis, just to satisfy a creative itch, I guess. Because I would like to get more ambitious with what I do. But I also kind of want to just satisfy a creative itch. But in terms, I don't know what else. You know, they're just there. It's something for me to do. It's something for me to keep busy. Kratos Sama says the main reason wrestling is trash now is because, hold on a second. Is this an actual question? This is not an actual question. Do you need a question mark? Sir. I'll read it though. The main reason wrestling is trash now is because back then, they would have an overarching main storyline that we would revisit throughout the show with a bunch of side plots throughout the mid card. The entire show would revolve around the biggest draws. Now the stars cut one promo and then leave if they're on TV at all. I will say this is not a question, but I agree with this. I do like when there is one main story and you go back to it. So I'll agree with this. Kratos-sama, however, Kratos-sama, please frame your question next time in the form of a question. RCB says, what's your biggest complaint and biggest compliment you have for the past year of wrestling? I will say this. I don't think it's bad. And I don't like, as what his name, Kratos-sama says, I don't think it's trash. I am still pretty entertained by it. I am also not really wowed by it. So I guess those are my biggest complaint. My biggest yeah, I would say that. A lot of missed opportunities with the John Cena thing. A lot of missed opportunities there. Fox Club says someone should remake Adventures of Babysit. It's not a question, guys. You need questions. I said at the beginning of the episode I wasn't going to say the ones that weren't questions, but now I'm just doing it because it's easier. Experiment says, would you ever do breakdowns on each era of WWE, WF, talking about major storylines and feuds? I'm not really necessarily into just dry information dumps. The closest I was going to get to this was breaking down WWE in 2019, but I had a specific point of view that I was going to do that in, and I still might do that. I'd never rule that out. It is why I got the Daniel Bryan title, wherever the fuck that is. Rostron says, if you were going to wrestle, who would you want to be your primary trainer? Shawn Michaels back in 1999, 2000. Thrawn says, how would you book Cena's retirement in the We Book Raw universe? Great question. Great question. Of course, We Book Raw was a collaborative effort between me and Larson where we would book things in a silly manner in the 2K universe. So I would have booked we would have booked Cena's retirement, probably related to his Hollywood stuff. Maybe each match he does would have some cinematic quality to it. Each match would be directed by a different big, Hollywood auteur, perhaps. I think maybe that's what we would have done. He would have gone like Method at one point, and we would have done like Cena loses his confidence, becomes fat story. That's an easy one. It would have been Cena reaches rock bottom, where he's like, living in an alley somewhere. That's so stupid. MKFJ Tiger says, true or false? Any promotion can take any wrestler from a different promotion and make them a bigger star. False. Checkmate 9 moves. Are wrestling shows more fun than live sports shows? They can be, depending on the wrestling show and the sports show. Dave Mitchell Baker says, what's the biggest anti-pop? La Parka in the Rumble or August 1 warning identity reveal? There is no bigger anti-pop than August 1 warning identity reveal, unless we're talking about Bobby Fish. Where's the lie? Cardi 55 says, the Gunther's boring. Crowd clap when Jey Uso runs it back. I don't know what that means. Kid Human says, if Nikki Bella or Brie now managed Sheamus, would he be... Okay, that is not. Bryce says, if you could be in the crowd for one match in wrestling history, what would that match be? The very first one that the Goldust Trio put on that was a work. Because before they decided to start manufacturing this shit, a lot of it was a shoot. They'd have their dude, and their dude would school a mark. Or some jobber they'd bring in, or whatever the term is. When they made the realization, hey, you know what? Maybe 3-hour, 2 out of 3 falls matches suck. Maybe we should start fixing these finishes. We should start scripting this stuff out. That's what I want to be there for. It was probably so steamy. It was probably some smoke-laden fucking room. Ritzier says, I saw this theory online. What are your thoughts? WWE has been making odd, bad decisions creatively to make content for the next season of Unreal. I don't buy it because, like, it doesn't stand out as something that's new or unique. Like, there's been, like Brock's kind of botched elimination at the Rumble. That's always been a thing. There's always been issues like that. No, I think they have enough real shit to work with for Unreal. Without having to manufacture it. The Real Positive Guy says, would you like to see Gunther versus Rey Mysterio at Mania? And how can Gunther drop this gimmick? I don't think Rey's going to retire anytime soon. I know he said that like years ago, but I don't think he's going to retire anytime soon. I think them stem cells are doing their jobs. Twisted Cookie, have you attended any Manias? So I had a great time at 31 and I had a miserable time at 33. 31 was awesome. We'd just been laid off. And I took the train down to San Jose and we watched it and it was great. We had seats that were really, really comfortable. They weren't super close. They were down a lower bowl. We had the shade on us. It was great. I was with Hilton and Larson. 33, we went and we did some business stuff there. I had a terrific time during the week because we saw a bunch of like indie shows, but it was like the actual Mania itself. It was like the last or the third to last really long Mania. And it was miserable. It was miserable. DBC says, how you feeling about the Saudi Mania after watching the Rumble? I don't know. The Saudi crowd can be good. They can be good and they can be crap. So I don't know. I'm not feeling any different about it after watching the Rumble. Cargo Ship Gaming says their match that you hate that everybody loves. No, not that I can think of. Not that I can think of. Ad says if the Royal Rumble were a shoot, how many toddlers could you feasibly eliminate single-handedly in one Rumble? Pepsi Dude says, would you rather watch WWE 1995 or WWE 2019 main roster? 95. Raws were only an hour long, I think. Yeah, they sucked. It was all a bunch of squash matches. But I'd rather watch 95 because I'm also not hugely well-versed on 95. 2019, I've watched the entire thing. But 1995, there's some good wrestling there. There's some goofy shit. There's some weird shit. There's plenty to appreciate about that. Art Guy says, what would you like to see Royce Keys do immediately? Attack somebody big. And then do the whole big guy thing. Wyatt 6, I'll be 25 on February 23rd. Do you have any life advice for me? I don't know. I mean, life advice is that I need more specifics. I don't know where you are in life right now. So I would need a little bit more info. Deontay says, any early predictions for the year? In terms of wrestling or just in general? Early predictions? I don't know. I feel like, I'll say this. I feel like without the crutch / burden of Cena's last year, WWE might be a little bit more unpredictable. Gorilla Mon says, whether wrestling, TV, or film, what antagonists... I've got a bunch... There's a whole podcast worth of predictions over at Going in Raw. It's literally like the channel trailer video. Gorilla Mon says, whether wrestling, TV, or film, what antagonists' motives do you sympathize with the most? I kind of understand where Thanos is coming from, even though I think it's a horrible thing that he did. But his logic has some amount of soundness to it. Yeah, I'll say that. John O'Davy says, what was the best version of the Borg design? Early, Next Generation, Voyager, etc. Voyager and First Contact was pretty much... They're pretty on par. I'm a huge fan. I don't know. I feel like Voyagers is a great extension of what they were. But I do think that there's something to be said about the Next Generation design. I would maybe say that. I like the Next Generation design Borg. 96 Grunge, if you had the pen, how long would you wait before giving Obafemi some sort of world title? Well, there's a reason I don't have the pencil. Because I would probably fast track Obafemi. I don't know. I'm a bigger fan of building people up. So I would put him in a story first, like a good story first. Cuban Bear, do you think that WWE will go the funny big man route like they did with Big Show and Khali to Royce and Obafemi? No, Triple H doesn't like that shit. Kyle Canyon, who better than Canyon, says, where does Buddy Matthews fit in when he returns and what would you like to see him do? I don't know. Buddy needs a character. He needs a character. That's what he needs. I'd like to see him have a character. Mr. BRS says, what's your favorite finisher reversal that you've seen either so far or all time? Shit, I don't know. You're putting me on the spot with that one. I'm sure there has been some sort of finisher reversal in a Will Ospreay match that made me lose my shit. Will Ospreay has probably made me, oh my fuck, what was that? So something like that. I don't know. Did he reverse a one-winged angel at some point into something fucking cool? I don't know. Probably. Braden St. John says, do you have any fun wrestling toy stories from when you were younger? No, I didn't have any wrestling toys because I didn't watch wrestling when I was younger. When I was like a kid. Rebecca Perry Dewson says, let's say you and Larson are on Survivor. Who would vote off who first? He would probably vote me off first. I'm kind of a sucker for him like that. Like when we play basketball, if I know that he's having like a bad day or he's like not feeling great, I'll ease up. if he knows I'm having a bad day, he doubles down. So that's just sort of our relationship. Widman Brand says he thinks Cena's retirement tour rewired the way fans think a retirement should happen. Our tour was never the norm, but now seems to be the only way. No, I think that the expectation has been raised. Sure, and I think that's fine. I think the Cena's retirement tour in general, like the idea, maybe not the bits and pieces and the details, but I think that's great. Yes, I'd love to have seen this for AJ Styles. I think when you look, Lars and I literally did a video today, 10 weirdest retirement matches. And like Hulk Hogan's retirement match, I mean, he had a pay-per-view match against Sting, but his actual last match was on a house show tour in the UK in a 6-man tag match. And it was like, really? That's the end of his career? That's crazy to me. That's nuts. So, yeah, I think that retirement tours or retirement shows, like, and this is a terrible example, but Ric Flair's last match. Now, had that match happened 10 years earlier, that's a great packaging for a retirement match. Even if it's like a one-time pay-per-view, I think that's a great... Bill Goldberg talked about doing the same thing before the Gunther match. So I think, maybe after the Gunther match, I think that's a cool idea. You know, so I think that's how legends should go out. Choweezy says, since Punk is facing Roman at Mania and Oba versus Lesnar was teased, what does Gunther do at Mania? So you got Punk versus Roman. You got Oba versus Lesnar. You got to go, since his thing right now is like legends, you got to do a legend, I think. So I don't know. Somebody earlier mentioned Rey Mysterio. I don't think Rey's gonna go anytime soon. But we got Dragon Lee now attacking Gunther. Maybe it is Rey. But doesn't that have to be Dom? So, dude, yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, who else is there? You can't do Jericho. That's too soon. You can't do Orton. He just re-signed. You gotta do somebody, though. I just don't know who that would be. Maybe, I mean, is it Rey Mysterio, but Dom interferes in the match and kind of saves his dad because he wants to be the guy that does it? You could maybe do that. That could be interesting. The Heat is on 76 says, who's a bigger plus delta, CM Punk or Roman Reigns? I think it's Roman Reigns. I think Roman Reigns is the plus delta. Tired Homer, he says, if Brock versus Oba happens at Mania, how competitive should it be before Oba wins? Fantasy is Oba decimates him. Here's the problem. If Oba decimates him, it's sort of on par with Brock just having a bad night, like he did against Goldberg. I'd want it to be competitive because competitive, I think, would be definitive. It's like Oba takes the best of Brock Lesnar and then gives it back to him and dominates him from then. You know what I mean? So that's what I would think would have to happen. Damon Harden says, do you think backstage politics still exist in wrestling? Yes, I do. Blake says, with how the crowd was for the Rumble, how do you see that? Oh, I already did this one. Mr. Van Cleef says, how valuable is an AJ Styles versus Ospreay match? Could it compete with next year's Saudi Mania if AEW ran a U.S. counter program? Compete? No, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. You want to put that on its own stage. You don't want to do that. You don't want to fuck with WrestleMania. You don't want to do that. That'd be interesting, but you don't want to do that. Dark Boy says, instead of asking which actor has been the best Batman, who do you think has been the best Bruce Wayne? I think Christian Bale. I think Christian Bale's been the best Bruce Wayne, and I think this might be a hot take, but I think Pattinson's been the best Batman. Ryan says, would you say Chelsea's only chance at being world champion is a cash-in unless she somehow gets a character change? Yeah, and I think that'd be great. I think they should do that. Danger Doom says, have you been the cash-in? I don't think she should change her character. Have you been keeping up with any of the 2K26 news? Any of the new features / DLC directions excite or concern you? I've not been keeping up, so I don't know what changes are being made. I don't keep up. I'll get the game. I'll maybe try to stream some shit. See how that works out. Riley Payne says, if it were up to you, which AEW wrestler would get the Tommaso treatment and move to WWE and win a title in their first match? Apollo Crews. Sami Zayn. Daryl Weller says, rank these solo music artists. MJ, Elvis, and Eminem. That would be the order. To me, it's MJ, it's Elvis, and then it's Eminem. I'm not an Eminem fan. I think that dude was single-handedly responsible for so much douche culture in the early 2000s. Carol says, do you see Judgment Day as Triple H's Bullet Club? Yeah, kind of. I wish they would expand members. I wish they would add more. Real TJP says, do you think WWE will finally focus on actually building up younger wrestlers? Yeah, it seems like that's what they're doing. Harrison Grant says, do you see any former AEW stars that jumped to WWE eventually going back to AEW? I know Andrade kind of did that, but he was in WWE first. Okay, so AEW jumped to WWE and then go back to AEW. What's the list? Starks? I think they're going to do stuff with Starks in WWE. Who else is there? I mean, it's kind of too early to tell. And a lot of the contracts aren't going to come due until like 2027. I feel like in 2027, we'll get some more movement. But former AEW jumped to WWE, eventually going back to AEW. I mean, WWE, by and large, they don't leave a lot of people out. I mean, you got Rusev, who went from WWE to AEW. Now he's in WWE again. They're not using him. I don't see him going back to AEW because I think the problem there was all creative stuff. Malachi Black, again, he was in WWE before, but I think he's probably okay with how they use him. Loco Butia says, have you had the chance to watch Wonder Man? I have not. Heard good things, though. I might check it out. Nutria says, should wrestling fans wait 2 to 3 days before melting down? I'm not going to tell you how wrestling fans should react to anything. Drew Diesel says, if you were booking WrestleMania, what guaranteed 6-star matches would you put on each night? A 6-star match. All right, I got it. Asuka versus Io and Gunther versus Ilya. Gunther versus Ilya's 1 and 2 in UK might be the best matches that have ever happened in WWE. Adam KDZ says, what do you see Randy doing at Mania? Maybe a 4-way with Drew, Cody, Jacob. Randy. Oh, it's going to be Randy versus Trick. I think Randy really likes Trick, so I think that's what he's going to do. Restless Gaming. What is one all-time WWE superstar that you think could have been great on commentary? What is one all-time WWE superstar that could have been great on commentary? Shit. I mean, I think, if you're an all-timer, you probably got the promo. So I would go, who I really wish I could have heard on commentary? Scott Hall. That would have been cool. TWK Review says, which current mid-card title design is your favorite at the moment? Can you imagine Scott Hall doing commentary? He's all huge. Somebody comes over and tries to mess with him. Like Gunther comes over and tries to mess with him. He's like, what are you going to do, big man? What is this? Which current mid-card title design is your favorite at the moment? Oh, I like the current U.S. title. I think it looks like $1 million. Meow says, how long is too long for a movie's runtime? There's no upper limit. As long as the movie is good. 3 hours and 35 minutes. Fistful of Boomstick says, favorite punk or hardcore band? Ooh. Probably Minor Threat. I love the Misfits across eras. But yeah, probably my favorite is Minor Threat. Yeah, I'd say that. I also like Anti-Flag. I like them quite a bit. Dylan Zahara says, why do you think WWE fans think it's Moxley every time there's a masked man? Because they want Mox back in WWE. Jason Bueno says there should be a transfer window where the companies can buy out the contracts of specific windows that the previous company allows it and the wrestler wants to leave. What's this reply? Only works when they're not independent contractors. Just not even a fucking question there. Come on, man. NYC Blackout. What are all the Funkos you have? All right. You got the Young Bucks, Becky. For some reason, Bray Wyatt's way back there. I don't know why. Kenny, the other Young Buck, Sting from back in the day, Shawn Michaels from back in the day, Eva Marie, Otis, Kevin Owens, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and then the Enforcer, and then myself with a custom one. Somebody sent me the Enforcer and Larson custom Funkos, and so I got him at the end, me and the Enforcer right there next to each other. And of course, we're next to Stone Cold Steve Austin. OJ the Black says, what else there? Are they all wrestling? They're all wrestling. OJ the Black says, with the Kings giving away Keon Ellis to get off Dennis Schroeder, what moves would you want the Kings to make before the deadline? Move them the fuck out of town, because I'm kind of tired of them. I am so over Vivek Ranadive and the fucking Sacramento Kings. I'm so over them. Move them, ship them up to Seattle. Fuck it. Send them to Vegas. I don't care. Boy, they just fucking suck. And this fucking owner of ours is absolute trash. God, it's so irritating. Talkman T says, if you had a chance to rewrite one wrestling match, what would you choose? His is Starrcade 97. Yeah, that's a good one. Sting and Hogan, that's a good one. Triple H versus Booker T at WrestleMania. Paul Evans says, could you see WWE using Unreal as a kayfabe storytelling tool? I think once they do that, they would lose the small amount of credibility they already have, and people just wouldn't care. They'd be like, If they were to, however, incorporate some Unreal type footage / programming / content into their weekly programming, that would be kind of an interesting blend of the two. But you would need to separate Unreal from that. If they want Unreal to, to be of interest, because otherwise people are like, fuck, they're just making it all up. They Took Rap says, what are your thoughts on independent wrestling? And who do you think is the face of the indies? I'm not well versed in indie wrestling these days to know who the face or whatever would be, but I try to catch shows when I can. I wish I could do more, but I can't. Never the Expert says, WWE have asked you to book someone to hold the world title on a Reigns-esque 1,000 plus day stretch. Which title and which wrestler? Man, it would be Asuka. It would be Asuka. It would be Asuka. Or Io. I don't think anybody would complain. X Blake, what do you see AJ doing now that his time in WWE is over? I don't know. Apparently he's going to do a podcast. There's like a report that he's going to film some stuff at WWE headquarters. I think they're going to lock him down with a really lucrative contract to do a bunch of bullshit to make sure he don't go anywhere else. That's what I think. But we'll see. Straight Fire, what is Steve's favorite movie car? The Bullet car. From the movie Bullet. Omega Advent says, with Roman in the past saying the world title was the B title, does that make him a B player, not an A player? No, I think when he said that kind of stuff, it was in reference to the fact that he's not that champion. Therefore, that championship has to be the B title. Toasty says, Steve, why you no lo pinta? Steve love pinta. Bash Masher. How come you and Larson are still watching WWE even though they have close ties with the current administration? This coming from a supporter to that administration who deeply admires the content y'all bring for many wrestling fans and friendos listen, watch, enjoy abroad. All right, so we don't support WWE. We cover WWE. I've said this several times because people are like, how can you still watch it? Number one, it's my job. This is what I built my career on, covering WWE. When WWE does something shitty, we criticize them. That's not supporting them. When WWE shows Triple H at the White House or whatever, we talk shit about it. We use our platform to say things like fuck ICE with our whole chest, or to raise money for the National Immigration Law Center. So we cover wrestling. We cover WWE because it's the biggest company, and that makes sure that our careers remain our careers. This is our jobs. This is what we build our career on. So we can't, it's not like we go, oh, let's just watch something else. So I haven't bought anything WWE in terms of supporting the company since that fucking expensive CM Punk title, which I'll be honest with you, probably end up selling soon anyways. But yeah, I don't consider it like supporting them. We watch them because it's our jobs. It's that simple. My question for you is, really? You support the current administration? I want to know what. I want to try to understand this. What about the current administration do you support? What are you in favor of? Where do you get your news from? Drop me some links. Tell me who. Who do you get your information from? What are you basing your opinion on? What policies of the current administration matter most to you and have an impact, a positive impact in your life? And what about those policies do you see making this country better? Let me know. I just want to understand. Planet Bumble says, Crow or Tom Servo? I was always a Tom Servo guy. Gabriel says, if you had to only pick one dream match for AJ and AEW, who would it be? Ospreay. It'd be Ospreay. Kenny or Ospreay. Crash Bandicoot says, Crash Brandon Coot says, did the 24/7 title ever have a memorable reign? I liked when they put it on Shelton Benjamin because I thought they were going to do something with it. Kay the Crusher says, who do you think wins a world championship first, LA Knight or Sami Zayn? My guess would be Sammy. Hassan says, after Powerhouse Hobbs, who do you see next jump ship from AEW to WWE and vice versa? Shit, dude, I don't know. There are plenty of contracts, I think, up in 2027. So I think it's a possibility that we'll get something then. Mr. Webby says, if you could pitch a company-wide story to WWE, what would it be? Maybe Apollo Crews. If I could pitch a company-wide story to WWE, what would it be? It would be this. Faction warfare. Seth comes back. He's got his own vision. In the words of Larson, it would be called Revision. But it would expand. The Vision would add to their ranks. Seth would add to his ranks. It'd incorporate men, women, the tag division. It would spill over into SmackDown. They would all get better logos and better t-shirts. So that's what it would be. Stu's View says, power rank these puppets from the Firefly Funhouse. Mercy, Huskus, Puppet Vince, Abby, Ramblin' Rabbit. Let's see here. Ramblin' Rabbit number 1, Huskus number 2, Mercy 3, Abby 4, Puppet Vince 5. Puppet Vince is pretty funny though. Balbroni, who will go into the WWE Hall of Fame first, Russo or Cornette? Cornette. Johnny P1 says, what do you think of the Peacemaker season 2 ending? I'm pissed that we're not going to get a season 3. I don't know when we're going to find out what happened to Peacemaker. Like, how is he going to get out of that place? I hope they make a big deal about that in whatever fucking movie he shows up in next. Lost Meskin, how would you book Shiloh Hill to become NXT champ? He'd have won that ladder match the other night instead of what they did. That finish was horrible. DJ Luke D says, how does declaring for the Rumble actually work in kayfabe? You just got to do it on time. You got to text the GMs. Hipster Chandler says, how much do you and Larson prep before starting the podcast? Larson recently mentioned he wakes up at 6:30 every morning and writes notes for the show sometimes later. He wakes up at 6:30 not for the show. He does that because he's got kids. He's got to get them to school. And I think middle school starts like an hour before like elementary. So I think I'm going to have to deal with that next year. That's going to suck. But yeah, I don't think he doesn't sleep until 6:30 because he wants to. It's not for the show. How much do we prep? Oh, I don't know. It depends on the day. Like, for example, today, who just texted me? Bama Buell. It depends on the day. Like today, it's a Bama said, get me food. Like, for example, today, I got up, I edited, at 9:00, I came to my desk, I edited the hot takes video, got that out there. Larson texted me around 10, said, hey, you want to do count out today? And then the bonus episode, I said, sure. And then we bandied about the idea that we're going to work on. He came up with the majority of the list with a little bit of input from me. And then at noon, we hopped on. We did both episodes back to back. And that was our day. On Thursdays is the big producing day for him because he does put together the notes for the news/AEW episode. I'll hop on there about an hour before we film and fill in some of the what do you want to talk about stuff. So I don't know. It's not like a ton. It doesn't start at 6:30 in the morning. I tell you what, Bucket Tipper says, I wasn't watching wrestling back in 14-15. Maybe you can help me out. Did the Dirt Sheets know about Sting's WWE debut at Survivor Series, or was it a total shock? No, I think we knew about that. Pretty sure we knew about that. Atticus says, if you were given permission to use a holodeck, what would your simulation look like? I would be like, hey, holodeck, I want to explore the universe. And I would be like in a super suit of some sort. That'd be really cool. It'd be like neon and purple. And I would zoom around the universe at like, I'd be like, hey, what's that over there? That's a black hole. Okay. Without feeling the gravitational effects, I want you to simulate that here in the black hole. And I want to go see it with the safeties on. That'd be sick. I would do that. I'm fascinated by space, but I have no desire to go into space. Or just orgy. Mr. Enomics says, thoughts on TNAMC. Michael Rue says, this is a question for Larson. I'm not, wrong channel. John says, how would AEW look if Dusty was still around and was with Cody through the whole thing? That's a big old butterfly effect. I have no idea. Femtrapta says, how much time do you think is reasonable for a champion to hold on to a belt while injured? I love Domina's work, but it feels like the IC title's been held hostage off screen. I mean, Jade isn't even injured. She hadn't defended that title once. So, look, man, I think that they should adhere to the whole 30-day thing. If you can't, in kayfabe or out of kayfabe, create an interim title. What is a Steve? Says, who retires Gunther? That's like 20 years from now, man. Whoever retires Gunther isn't even in wrestling right now. Shabryukin says, you think if Austin hadn't had so much time off due to injury and had to cut his career short for the same reasons, and Rock hadn't taken off for Hollywood so soon, WWE would have force-fed them to the point of annoyance like pretty much every other main guy they've had? No, I don't. I don't think they would have been considered force-fed at all. They would have had much more longevity, but I don't think anybody would have complained about that. They were massively popular. Kron Live Forever. Who won the NBA trade deadline? Well, it's not up yet. Hector Guzman says, if you had to live this, certainly not at the Sacramento Kings. If you had to live the rest of your life with an NBA player's nickname as your government name, what would it be? Oh, it'd be the Dream. It'd be Hakeem the Dream. It'd be the Dream. That's what it'd be. People walking around, hey, what's up, the Dream? Quote the Raven says, I'm over Jade Cargill. Yeah, she has a look, but so did China. She wasn't very good on the talent side either. Oh, I love China. That was great. China was awesome. Ragnarok says, how do you feel about React content making a compilation of Royal Rumble watch-along reactions? Over 2 minutes of you and Larson in there at 20,000 views. I think it's great exposure for us as a young podcast. I don't mind that. They want to go ahead and compile that shit. I am not going to complain. It's fine because that's work. It's all good. We're eating good. They can eat good too. The Champ says, do you prefer wrestling more or Star Trek? Probably Star Trek. It depends on the trek. I like wrestling more than Starfleet Academy. I like wrestling more than Enterprise. But I don't think I like anything more Next Generation. 2467 Deadman says, is all the recent social media talk of Ricochet not being popular with fans when he was in WWE disingenuous? Is that a thing? Is that a real thing? People just wanted to see him do stuff. I don't think he was unpopular. Centrifuge says, why did WWE announce Keys as FKA Powerhouse Hobbs? He's the first person they've done that for. They actually used to do that all the time in NXT. So I like that. I think that's cool. Geek Pop says, do you think Trips will listen to the fan backlash, or do you think his ego will keep him doing creative by himself? I think Triple H will listen to his bosses at TKO. His bosses at TKO see that in Saudi Arabia, they're giving him $100 million to do WrestleMania or 50 or whatever it is. I think they see at in Montreal, I think. No, where were they right before Saudi? The Scotia, whatever. 15,000 sold out. I think as long as they keep on doing good business-wise, why should he listen to anybody? Straight Fire says, who is the best James Bond and why is it still Sean Connery? Sean Connery. I don't know. It's for me. I kind of like Daniel Craig. I think he's good. BLS says Vic Joseph, Michael Cole's successor. Cole is slowly deteriorating and Joseph has that energy. I don't know, man. They'll probably bring in somebody from the outside. Jake the Snake says, do you think wrestling is looking faker now that you don't have to be a tough guy to get in the business? It depends on the wrestler. Some of them make it look real, like the Roderick Strongs out there. They make it look real. Sometimes not so much. Preston Lawrence says NXT UK Walter or current Gunther, which is better? Think WWE's making Gunther a cheap heel by cheating to win and using a boring sleeper hold. Boy, there was something to be said about UK Walter, but now that I see Gunther the way he is, he just looks healthier. Straight Fire says, serious question this time. Why do metalheads hate grunge? I don't know. You got to ask them. One Pika Peen says, I'm super happy for Joe Hendry, but do you happen to see a future where he may be able to win the big one? Early to tell. Too early to tell. I don't know. It depends on how they use them. It's just like you mentioned LA Knight. It depends on that. Anyways, that's going to do it for this edition of Ask WrestleJuice. And I have a bit of an announcement to make. I'm retooling this one because I do think that doing every single question is getting kind of old. I like it being a participation thing where everybody gets theirs in, but so from now on, I am going to take the top, let's say 10 questions. So make sure they're good questions if you're going to submit them on the next thread. That's going to do it. We'll see you guys around.